Hello and welcome to The Long Play, where we listen to some of the world's greatest albums. It's a little bit like a book club, but there's no books. Hello, Paul Smith.
Hello, Tom Figgins. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks, mate. Happy New Year.
Yeah, here we are, 2025.
I know, it's all happening.
I don't know if we can say Happy New Year in February, but we're going with it.
It does feel a bit odd, I can't deny.
Let's go with it. We've managed to, today, pick the 1 hour where there's a pneumatic drill going on outside your house for this recording session, which is pretty good going.
Yeah, that is a bit annoying, but we'll roll with it and hope that it doesn't impede our revelations too much.
Our listeners are nothing if not forgiving.
And here we are. So we've been listening to albums from 2024 all this month. How's it been?
Oh, I've really enjoyed it. I think, as we said when we in the launch of this and in the revolution when I sent out the email, there's a risk that you kind of skip new music when we're doing what we're doing with the long play and listening to lots of classic albums. So it's great to just dive into what's new, and I've really loved it. I think that I have no real preference between kind of classic and new music. You know, it's all part of the good stuff. I guess it's easier with the benefit of hindsight to look back at the old music and get take the wheat from the chaff. But it's been really good to have a listen to a few of the big albums of 2024 this month.
Yes, and we didn't really sort of confer about what we were going to listen to.
We did not.
We've just had a little bit of time over some lunch listening to sort of the singles from each of the albums that we chose, to just have a little bit of a refresher, really, just so that we kind of know what we've been up to.
Yeah.
But we haven't previously discussed kind of how we feel about it all. Not at great length, anyway. Not like we're about to do.
Not at great length as we're about to do. Exactly right.
But did you find it unusual experience in the sense that, I mean, this was a bit of a departure from what we've done in previous months. Did that feel liberating for you, or did it feel, a tiny bit strange in that sense?
I don't think it felt strange. I think it felt different. You're right. It did feel different, but it just it felt timely. Like it was time just to catch up and listen to a couple of albums that I'd intended to listen to during the course of 2024 and not got to it. And again, as we're going to discuss, not convinced that they are albums that I would naturally kind of gravitate towards. So it was nice to do what we do with the long play and spend a month with them, which then lets you appreciate them more. And that was definitely the case with the albums that I chose.
And how did you come to those decisions? We did previously have a chat, and we kind of, because of the hype that was around Brat when it came out, it did feel, because I'd not listened to it.
Yeah.
I don't think you had either. No. We kind of felt like we had to.
Yeah. So the how I came to those decisions was, and if you refer back to the mid-month missive I sent out in the middle of January, you'll see that there was quite a few best of 24 lists there. So that was the place I started, really, the best of 24 lists. All of those, or almost all of those that were on the mid-month missive, I kind of referred to. Remarkably, Brat was at the top of all of those lists. It completely dominated the kind of critics' choice, both sides of the Atlantic. Actually, some of these were US lists,
right?
So I felt like I had to listen to Brat. I think it kind of was a given, as you said.
Yeah.
And then I was looking for something to balance it out. So actually what I did was choose 2 more albums. So obviously Brat by Charli XCX. And then I chose No Title, as of 13th of February 2024, 28,340 Dead by Godspeed You Black Emperor, which is a post-rock album. And the title refers to the civilian casualties in Gaza at the time of recording. So quite a political album.
Wow.
So that appeared in a number of the lists, and I was intrigued by it, and I thought it also balanced against Brat in quite an obvious and extreme way. But if you think about 2024, from a pop culture perspective, Brat's Summer was the big thing, and from a kind of global perspective, the conflict was a big thing. So, they're kind of opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of seriousness, in terms of, what they represent. But, so it was good to have that contrast. And I did actually think I would listen to Chromatopia by Tyler, the Creator, because I was interested in another hip-hop album. I have to say, 2 was enough. So I ended up just listening to 2, because to get into those albums, I felt like I had to dedicate time to them. So I ended up with the Charli XCX and the Godspeed You Black Emperor albums as my 2 albums that I really delved into.
Yeah, I foolishly, maybe some would say, did 3. And I chose a slightly different approach to you in the sense that I didn't look at any lists at all to kind of, sort of make the choices, I guess. I chose, we listened to Brat, like we mentioned, and then I knew that The Last Dinner Party had released an album that I really liked them, and I hadn't listened to it yet. So I thought this was a good opportunity to do that. Yeah. And then the other one was an artist that I thought, was maybe a little bit more under the radar, which was Hamish Hawke, who's a Scottish songwriter, who I've listened to a couple of his songs in the past and really enjoyed. And someone put it in their album, in their list of albums of 2024, and I went, I didn't realize a new album had come out.
Great.
And it was good. It was lots of, apart from Brat, it was lots of guitar, rock, indie. It was good.
Great. Well, what struck me actually is obviously a lot of albums of the year lists come out towards the end of the year. And I understand with big publications, but I'm quite active on Substack. Make sure you subscribe to us on Substack. But there's lots of people who just publishing their top 50 albums of the year. And I'm wondering I can't do that. I can't listen to that many albums and make that judgment quickly enough. Yeah. I think that, again, that's the purpose of the long play for me, is to really understand an album. I need to listen to it quite a few times.
But also that is what we're trying to do. We're trying to ingest this information slowly instead of quickly. And I guess if I said to you, right, Paul, you've got to go make a list of the best albums of 2024, and you've got 2 weeks to do it. And if that was your job, I imagine you'd probably find a way. Yeah, and you'd probably have one eye on all the other places that have done exactly the same thing and gone well, all of these are probably. That's not to besmirch anyone who's working in music journalism, but just saying, there's a reason that a lot of the top albums are in all the lists.
Yes, yeah, that's true. And I think, I guess 2 things on that. I am impressed by those people who can listen to an album once and say, I love this album. Yeah. I find that what I understand when I first listened to an album through once is this is my sort of music. And I like this sort of music, and there's a couple of tracks that speak to me here. But if it's not my sort of music, it takes me a few listens to really, start to understand whether I like it.
I think to the level as well that we're getting to once we've spent our time with the record that we're listening to for that month, that place is very far removed from where I enter that experience. Yeah. I think back to when we did Blood on the Tracks. Shout out to my Spotify Wrapped. And, I walked into listening to that Bob Dylan album going, I don't know if I really like Bob Dylan. Yeah. And walked away just absolutely loving that record. Yeah. And I don't think that can come from one listen. I don't believe it can. I think we are doing something and trying to achieve something slightly different from, not just from saying I like it, I don't like it. We're really trying to, we're trying to soundtrack our months with these pieces of work. I've been thinking loads about this actually recently. when I've been listening to music with my children in the car and thinking about what I used to listen to in the car when I was younger with my dad.
Yeah.
And
so Bob the Builder's on your best of 2024.
Well, close, Frozen. We had one cassette or two, and we listened to that. I mean, for 5 years, and that hard rock compilation that we listened to, which had The Doors, Talking Heads, Cream, like that was what we listened to, and I think I think that's what we're trying to do with the long play. We're trying to deconstruct how we listen to music now, and try and start, refinding that way of, I think I've talked about this before, but I had a CD in my car when CDs were still in. And I listened to that for a whole trip when I was working somewhere. I was away for a week doing that. And I listened to that album for a week. Quite a lot as well. Like, it was Once Again by John Legend. Brilliant album. And that, now I have such core memories from listening to that record and hearing those songs. It takes me right back to doing that. And I think that's kind of the crux of what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
Like, I think about when we were listening to Songs in the Key of Life, I can remember listening to that album and doing specific things. Like, if I think about other singles and stuff like that I listened to on One Off, I can't remember where I did that. It's there's a runoff, I guess, or a side effect to the way that we're trying to achieve this, and the side effect which I think is really valuable.
Yeah, great. And actually, the other point I was going to make is, I really like James Acaster's podcast and book, Perfect Sounds Whatever, which is about the best. His claim that 2016 is the best year for music ever, and specifically, that's not what he's really claiming. He's actually, what he's trying to do is to dive into every single album from 2016. It's a hell of a project, but what it shows is that some of the albums that he discovers that nobody else has hardly listened to are great albums. There's so much good stuff out there, and it goes back to your point of the top 50s seem to be repeated across multiple publications. But what he did was say, oh, what about these albums that have sold 3 copies through Bandcamp? This is and actually there's a couple of great albums that he's recommended from that is still very much.
Well, maybe he should be listening to the long play.
Yeah, maybe he should.
Maybe we should get. Well, James, if you're listening, come on and come and tell us about your favourite albums of 2016.
So, Tom, tell me, how did you find it? How did you find those 3 albums you listened to? Clearly, this isn't like a full-blown review like we normally do, but I'm really interested in, what your findings were from listening to the 3 albums that you had.
Well, maybe we should start with Brat, seeing as we did that together.
Of course, yeah.
I think I was a bit hesitant when I think I'm kind of hesitant of anything that gets so much hype. Maybe that's just my. I don't know why. I don't really know why I'm so resistant.
There's kind of, that's a very normal reaction. It's
like,
kind
I was
of
the same
some sort
about
of inverse
Hosier.
snobbery,
I was the same about Hosier when Take Me to Church was so big.
Yeah.
And now he's one of my favourite artists.
Yeah.
And I remember listening to the first time I listened to the first album, kind of going like, why was I so resistant to this?
Yeah.
Like, so many times this happens, and I think I just need to stop being an idiot.
Well, don't rush into it, Tom.
Well, I wouldn't want to spoil your fun.
No, exactly.
But yeah, I have listened to Charli XCX before, and it got sort of sent to me as a reference for a job I was working on.
Yeah,
and I found it quite tricky.
Yeah,
it was a lot more intense than I found Brat, but I really loved Brat. I thought the whole thing was just an amazing sort of roller coaster of 2024 culture. Like, it's a very culture commentary album.
Yeah, and it's a very cohesive album as well.
Yeah, musically, it's really on point. Commentary wise, it's really on point. I think it's really, really good.
Yeah, So I saw Charli XCX live actually
Ooh.
at Beacons Fest in
Beacons in Skipton.
maybe 2014. So
wow.
10 years ago. And I wasn't that into it, if I'm honest. So like revisiting this, I came in with a little bit of that kind of, oh yeah, I'm not sure this is for me.
Yeah.
And then the auto-tune, everything I found it, I wasn't sure, but the more I listened to it, again, the long play pays off.
Yeah.
I love it. I love some of the tracks. It's great. And I agree. I think the whole concept is beautifully executed.
Yeah, it's unbelievably well crafted.
Yeah.
Unbelievably well crafted.
And they have really kind of pulled it off. And therefore, I'm amazed. I'm amazed at how much it's dominated the kind of cultural best of lists.
Yeah.
But, deservedly so, I think. But it is pretty ubiquitous.
What I thought was interesting, and this might have been a symptom of the way we've kind of done it this month, in the sense that we've had multiple albums to listen to, and we've not been kind of seeking, maybe with a review hat on, if that's fair to say.
Yeah.
I feel like I've been listening to these all with a kind of slightly different ear.
Mm-hmm.
I've been listening to them to enjoy, as opposed to listening to them, sort of trying to find something interesting to say about them. But maybe because I've not spent as much time with it as I would have done on a typical month, I did find that the singles on this album shone to me, like 360 and Von Dutch.
Yeah.
Those were the standouts for me. There was another track which I really liked. Maybe it was Everything Is Romantic, the sort of much slower one, which feels like a real sort of unusual handbrake turn in the album. It was really nice. Yeah, again, really well crafted.
I really like I Might Say Something Stupid, actually. That's up there for me. B2B, I think it's a great dance track.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I
got loads of like early noughties dance music influences in this.
Yeah. I think that was another reason why I found it at the start not as accessible as I thought, because I kind of knew it was dance, but I thought it was, but I was expecting pop in a way. Yeah. And therefore, actually it's really properly dancey. And that kind of...
But maybe this is what pop is now.
Yeah, it just disconnected me a bit from what I was my expectations. And then when I got into it, absolutely, loved it.
Yeah, I thought Von Dutch for me, like when I was listening to it, I was like, it sounds so Magnetic Man.
Uh-huh.
Did you ever listen to Magnetic Man?
No.
That album, again, in a similar fashion to that soundtrack, probably a year of my life.
Uh-huh.
And I really love that album.
Actually, it reminded me a bit of, so I was at Beacons Fest, and the guy I wanted to see was John Hopkins, and that kind of flat bass. Some of the production it's pretty different, but that's what that Von Dutch reminded me of. Actually,
it hits so hard, that song.
Yeah,
it's really good, and the video as well. It's an absolute masterpiece. There's so much. I think I'm in awe of the kind of creativity of it all.
Yeah,
to be so popular and have, artists get pressure from record labels to make successes. They invest the money and they want returns. And I think for an artist, and I think this is the kind of, the great thing about success stories with people who are proper artists, in the sense that they can do something and have, I think that there comes a point where the record label just goes, okay, cool, we trust you. You just go do you.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's really what she's got to do here.
Yeah, exactly right.
It oozes creativity and style
and vision
and artistic vision, which I think is really important. Like it feels like she's across all of it. It's great. It's really, really good. I loved it. I loved how Full Throttle it was, which is contrary to the point where I said I didn't like how Full Throttle the other track I listened to of hers was. But maybe it's kind of different. I did feel like this was more accessible, but maybe the construction of the album does a good job, that by the time you get to something that hits as hard as Von Dutch does, you're kind of there.
Yeah.
Like 360 is a lot softer in its kind of approach.
Yeah.
But it's still got loads of swagger, loads of punch. It's great. And I think the nice thing about this is that it's the album that got all the plaudits. You know, like, you know, everybody called it a Brat Summer, and that's the name of the album. I think that's doing what we're doing on this podcast. I think it's a good thing to be to be walking away from this and going,
albums matter.
Yeah, you got it right.
Yeah, absolutely. It's culturally important, you know, this album. Great. Tell me about The Last Dinner Party.
Yes. I absolutely love The Last Dinner Party. I think they're brill. I came across them. I don't know how I came across them. I feel like someone must have sent me something, or I watched them. Maybe it was on the radio. I hear the odd good, you know, every now and again. I love this about Six Music is you'll put it on, and then every now and actually, the other artist that I listen to, Hamish Hawke, I first heard him on Six Music as well.
Yeah.
And every now and again, you'll just listen to it for sort of half an hour, and then you'll walk away with an artist that you want to go and check out.
Yes.
And that's you know, a fantastic thing about that. So maybe it was on Six Music. But I really loved the sort of ode to rock that they seem to be bringing to the party. You talked a little bit about Wet Leg and getting mixed up between them, and we were trying to figure out why. And actually, I think it's because of the content and what they're trying to say in their songs. But yeah, I thought it was fantastic. I thought the beginning I found a little bit convoluted. The album opens with a sort of a big orchestral song. And I just found, I was a bit like, come on, I want to get to the rock music. But I liked it more when I realised that actually it was an orchestral piece of one of the songs which comes later. I did find that the singles that I'd heard did still wind up being my favourites, which again, maybe like before, is a bit of a symptom of, you know, not having spent as much time with it. But yeah, I liked the aspect of them. They all have been chosen as singles for a reason. I think they've picked good ones. But a shout out to Portrait of a Dead Girl, which I also really, really like. But yes, I mean, we didn't do a score for Brat.
No.
Have you got a score for it? Or maybe we'll do this at the end.
Okay.
Let's do this at the end.
Okay.
We'll do them all. But yes, I really enjoyed it. And yeah, I'm excited to hear what they do next.
Great. Yeah. For me, Godspeed You, Black Emperor, the album, and we just played a little clip, and I think you'd really love it, Tom.
Yeah.
You know, there aren't some big singles to listen to. It's an album to...
Hey, I'm not all about the singles.
It's an album to kind of get into. I really like the kind of production, I think the thing that I'm still working through with it is it's linked to its theme, because it's really obvious when there's vocals if somebody is, has got a message, because the message is there in the words. And, this is an kind of war message that is, the horror of war and the conflict in Gaza. And I think that's difficult to convey with tunes. No, I think they do an amazing job, but it's not as obvious or immediate. And I'm not sure without other people describing it, or them kind of without the titles, it's a bit more challenging to kind of it's a bit like going to an art gallery and seeing a kind of a very abstract piece, and you have to read the blurb that goes beside it just to work out what it's about, and then you can feel it sometimes. You can find it approachable. It needs a bit of interpretation.
That's an interesting parallel to make, actually, the whole sort of abstract art with ambient or orchestral or with cinematic music or abstract. Maybe abstract is the right word. Music which is trying to ask you to come the extra yard before it kind of reveals to you what it's all about. And feeling that, on a sort of personal level, I always find with art maybe is a little bit more tricky. I have had it with some pieces, but yeah, I do always find that I'm one of the annoying people who goes and reads every single little plaque in an art gallery, because I think I find the interesting aspect in that what the kind of reasoning and process was. I find the process almost more interesting than the sort of outcome.
Yeah.
And these sort of works that you've shown to me with Godspeed You, I can see it. I can see it.
Yeah, I think it's really difficult to say, well, I really liked it. There's some good tunes. It's it's well produced. It's good musicianship, but they feel like that none of that is. It was certainly not everything within this album, and it's not enough. And I have to say, at the moment, it doesn't make me feel as an album. It doesn't make me feel enough yet.
Yeah,
and I think
but it's probably a slow burner.
Yeah,
right?
I think so. I think so. I really think it's a great album, and again, it is all over the top 50 lists.
Yeah,
I mean, it amazes me. Brat is number 1, and then like 2 to 10 are often the same, but nobody's in the same position. They're all over the place. And this is on those lists, and I think for good reason. It's well worth a listen. But really understanding it.
I find these albums in particular, you've almost got to control the environment and the way that you listen to them to really sort of interface with it in the way that it's kind of asking you to.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, Brat, I could put on in the car. Put this on in the car. It's kind of it's a bit lost.
Yeah. You might have a nice time listening to it, but you wouldn't walk away from it kind of going
with feeling.
Yeah, I it's one of those things I'd probably need to listen to on headphones and in a dark room.
Yeah,
and
agreed.
Just to kind of almost take away any external,
stimulus,
influence, and just be able to, lose yourself in those things. So I'm looking forward to listening to it.
Right.
And then
Hamish Hawk.
Hamish Hawk.
I nearly said Hudson Hawk, which is a really bad Bruce Willis film.
Well, it wasn't that.
No, right.
It's
not the soundtrack to Hudson Hawk.
No. Hamish Hawk, A Firmer Hand. It's really great. It's a little bit different.
I don't know him actually.
I'd recommend. Yeah, so I came across him on Six Music. A song of his called The Mauritian Badminton Doubles Champion 1973.
Right.
I mean, if that's kind of an indicator of the kind of, the title is almost an indicator of the sort of style of music.
Yeah.
It's got, he references on his blurb on Spotify, acts like Jarvis Cocker and a band called The Magnetic Fields, which I really enjoy. And he's got a real swagger and style about the way that he performs these songs. And they're funny, and there's a lot of imagery and symbolism in these songs, and you don't get a lot of that in sort of very ubiquitous pop music. Usually stuff which everybody's listening to is maybe a tiny bit easier to just get into quickly. Again, a sort of riposte to what we're doing is a bit of a riposte to everybody wanting everything so quickly and so easily now. And I think, with a little bit of work, there's some great stuff out there to be had. But I really loved his sort of unusual style, more guitar music. It felt like January was my month of guitars. And yes. Yeah, I'd really recommend anybody to go and have a listen to it. And as well, the Mauritian Badminton Doubles Champion 1973. It's a cracker. It's a real great song.
It sounds it.
Yes. So let's score these.
Let's score them. I really liked Brat, and so I'm giving it a 9.
I'm giving it a 9 too. Yeah, when do we ever agree?
Well, maybe, as I say, like all of the critics in all of their top 50 lists, Brat was up there, and it's good. It's really good. I think the Godspeed You Black Emperor album, I I'm giving a 7, I think, at this point.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's an album that I'm likely to change that score as I listen to it more.
Well, maybe we'll check back in a couple of months and see if you've changed.
Yeah.
Yes. So I gave The Last Dinner Party an 8, and I gave Hamish Hawk a 7. But yeah, I've thoroughly enjoyed my time with all three.
Great. So just thinking about the best albums of 2024, actually, Tom, we've talked a bit there about it, but there were other big albums that, so I talked about Tyler, the Creator's album, which is definitely on my list for the future. Other big albums, obviously, we've just had the Grammys, and the best album went to Cowboy Carter. Cowboy Carter by Beyonce was high up on almost all lists.
Yeah, I have listened to it, and I didn't care for it when I did.
Yeah. I'm not convinced I'd care for it either, personally. I'm not a big country music fan, and the singles didn't really speak to me. So
no,
yeah.
So yes, I'm sort of undecided in that regard. I guess it would have to be an album that we're listening to on one of these months, I think.
Yeah,
for me to probably to go back in after listening to. I listened to it on the weekend. I think it came out. Was it around Easter this year? Last year.
Yeah,
and I remember listening to it. I had a long drive to a job I was doing, and I listened to it all the way there. And yeah, I just wasn't maybe, but that might also have been the way that I listened to it. Yeah. So I'm not sort of saying that it's no good or anything, but it wasn't for me at the time.
Yeah. Other albums, I think I'm interested in Diamond Jubilee by Cindy Lee, which feels like it appeared in a lot of the lists. It feels like the ultimate hipster album, actually. In that it was only released via Bandcamp and on a GeoCities website. It's not on any of the streaming services. It's really kind of underground or rejecting the kind of particularly the streaming services, and it's like 2 hours long or something. But and hence why I didn't choose it for this project. But I'm intrigued by it because it sounds like the sort of thing I'd enjoy.
Yeah.
And then there were big albums for kind of older artists, if you like, that I was drawn to. But I decided I wanted to stick with new artists, really, or newer artists. But Jack White, I think his latest album got a lot of love in the end of year reviews. I think it's called No Name.
Okay.
The Cure had a good album last year, and Kim Gordon of Sonic Youth fame had a big solo album that got a lot of love in the end of year polls. So some really kind of interesting.
And maybe you've listened to one of them.
Yeah, let us know.
Yeah, let us know what you've been listening to this month. But that brings us on to next month. What are we going to be doing, Paul? We're going to be listening to?
We're going to be listening to Remain in Light by Talking Heads.
I'm really excited.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, this has been on the kind of poll a couple of times, and
because I keep on saying I really want to listen to this album.
Well, why not? Why not? It feels like it fits exactly in the in our sweet spot of classic albums. It feels like it's a good addition to the canon of the long play.
Exactly.
And I'm very excited about it.
You can find us at all the places where we live, like Instagram, which is the Long Play Pod. You can find us on Substack. You can find us in the Substack.
You can find us at thelongplaypod.substack.com. Come and subscribe there. I send out a couple of emails every month. We send out the mid-month missives, which this month will be all about Talking Heads and Remain in Light, and give you some extra kind of reading and background.
Yeah.
And then at the start of the month, I always send out an email called The Revolution, which is just about wrapping up the previous month and starting the new month.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what we're doing right now.
So come and join us. Tell us what you've been listening to, and maybe tell us what you'd like to hear on the Long Play in the future. We'll be putting out the poll for next month in due course.
Yes, it comes out with the mid-month missive every month. Yeah,
so make sure you vote on that. And thanks so much for sticking with us. We hope you had a really good festive period and that your start to 2025 has been just as good. But wishing you a very, very happy new year from all of us here. But without further ado, we have to say...
Yeah.
No skipping.
No shuffling.